Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Short Hops with Wichita Wingnuts manager Kevin Hooper. Short Hops is a weekly program that gives you, the fans, the opportunity to ask the Wichita manager questions about the Wingnuts, baseball or sports in general, or just seek Kevin's wisdom about life. In this week's program, Kevin talks with us about the exciting announcement of him joining the San Diego Padres organization. He shares a little NFL insights with us, and he helps out a few different married couples that are looking to get some of their issues resolved. So let's get right to Short Hops. So we're going to welcome back manager Kevin Hooper. For those of you who did not hear the news yet, Kevin was offered the position as the roving minor league infield instructor for the San Diego Padres and will be doing that now. And so he will be stepping away from his job as the Wichita Wingnuts manager. So just so you guys are aware, this is going to be the last couple of weeks we're going to have of the show, this week for today and next week on Monday. So Kevin has already said that if you have lots of questions, let's get him in for next week's show. But before we move on to those kind of things, I wanted to give Kevin a kind of a chance to talk about what he's going to be doing and what this is going to mean for the Wingnuts and for himself personally. So Kevin, tell us a little bit first about what you're going to be doing for the San Diego Padres.
Yeah, thanks, Robert, as always, for hosting the show, and as always, thanks for all the questions. And I look forward to doing this for one more week and kind of be able to answer any and all questions that we might have for the last week next week. But as you mentioned, I'm going to be the minor league infield coordinator for the San Diego Padres. So I'll pretty much be in charge of all the minor league infielders. How this will work is I'll go to Major League Camp. I actually have to go to the Dominican Republic at the end of this month for about 10 days, the January 31st through February 10th. And then I'll come home for a week, and then middle of February I'll report to Major League Camp and be in Major League Camp for a little bit. And then we'll start our mini camp in the minor league side, and then minor league camp will start beginning of March. And then I'll be in minor league camp the whole time up until April 2nd. The nice thing about this job is I get to come home. So starting in April, you average about 10 days at home a month. I make my own schedule, so I'll be flying pretty much every fourth day. So let's say I'll go spend a 4-game set in Double A San Antonio. Then I might fly to the Midwest League in Fort Wayne, Indiana for 4 days. So that's how it's going to be. I'm just going to continue to move throughout the minor league system at every stop along every level, and try to make these infielders the best infielders we can make them, and get them ready for Andy Green in the big leagues. It was tough. It was a tough decision. They flew in, spent 3 hours at my house with my wife and I right before Christmas. Ended up making an offer the next night, and we wait on that offer for about 5 days, and then finally accepted it. But the response has been tremendous today. My phone won't stop blowing up. But the press conference was at 2 today, and it's been incredible. It's been great. I spoke to all my guys last night and today, all of our players. And, as some of them were upset that they weren't going to be able to continue to play for me or play for me for the first time, they were all very, very excited for me personally in this opportunity. I felt like I'd be cheating myself if I didn't take this opportunity, because these coordinator jobs are coveted, very, very much so, and they don't just pop up here or there. You're talking about 30 of them. There's 30 minor league infield coordinators, one for each team, and very humbled, very blessed that they reached out to me and pulled hard for me to take that position in the Padres system. I can't thank them enough for this opportunity, and we'll see what happens long-term wise. I'm going to enjoy every bit of it and just kind of see where this leads and where this takes us. A lot of times in situations, coordinating jobs turn into big league jobs, whether it's with the Padres or any other organization. Will that ever happen? Will that opportunity ever come? Who knows? It's never a given. But I'm going to make the most of this opportunity and do the best that I can with it. Josh and I'm going to have my input on who the next manager is here in Wichita, and we'll sit down and go over all of our options and try to find the best fit. And Jim Foltz and Luke Robertson will be back, and we actually just announced the new hiring of our new hitting coach, Paul Sanagorski, today as well. But that's about it on that side of things. I can't say enough about my time in Wichita. It was a tough decision because I've built this thing, built this to what it's become. Been a ton of hours, a ton of work, a lot of pride. I feel like we've built such a great foundation here, and It was very humbling sitting in the press conference today, and after I got done speaking, Josh rattled off my credentials and what we've done in my time here, and very humbling. And I'll be the first to say I can't do it by myself. Without the great staff that I have, and I've always said you can't be a good manager without good players. I thank everyone involved in the organization, all my former players and my staff for the help and building what we've built here.
Kevin, can I ask what exactly, in terms of you're in charge of the infielders throughout the system? Now, does that mean that, like, if you saw a guy who you thought, wow, this guy would be better at second, you could move them, or you would talk to the team about how does this exactly work for you personally?
Yeah, I'm just going to make them the best I can make them. Yeah, that would be a community effort in a decision like that. We have obviously an minor league coordinator who makes all those decisions. We also have a field coordinator who's kind of in charge of everything on the field, and those are two head honchos in the minor league. So it'd kind of be a huddle up. If I thought that, yeah, I would not hesitate to tell those guys when we come collectively together and probably asking some others to be involved in that decision and make a decision on what we thought fit best and what was going to be the kid's best opportunity to make it to the major leagues.
Well, that is sensational, and I know that lots of people out there are really happy. Well, actually, 29 organizations are probably really unhappy about that, but Padres very happy for sure.
Yeah, and this will, you never know what kind of doors this is going to open up. So I'm very, very, like I said, very anxious to start this new chapter in our lives. Very grateful to the Padres for giving me this opportunity.
That is excellent. Well, we're going to spend a little time going over the questions that we do have this week. For those who wrote in with questions directly related to the Wingnuts, I did take those out because that's really not Kevin's responsibility now. So I wanted to focus more on the other things that people had. And, of course, let's first of all begin with Kevin's excitement for his team from this last Saturday.
Yeah, our Chiefs keep rolling. It's been fun. You talk about dominating performance, too, 30-0. It really couldn't have gone any better than it did. So I was concerned. Going in just because everybody thought the Chiefs were going to dominate and that it was going to be an easy game for them. And that's never a good situation, it seems, in sports when everybody's on that bandwagon thinking it's going to be an easy win. But, boy, they came out and did it and showed everybody what they're about and the consistency that they've been on. And so I guess we'll go over the playoff predictions, and I'll let you lead into that, Robert.
So tell us who you see going Kansas City and New England this Saturday.
Obviously the Chiefs. I got to go with my Chiefs. I know last week I said it's hard to bet against Aaron Rodgers. It's kind of the same with Tom Brady.
Yes, it is.
It's tough to bet against those guys, but I think the Chiefs can pull it off. They've been such a pleasant surprise here for these 11 games that they won in a row, and what a magical thing it would be if they can continue it. But it's going to be tough. Tom Brady's tough. Playing in New England is going to be tough, and definitely have their hands full.
The Pittsburgh Steelers and Denver Broncos.
I got to go with the Broncos as much as I don't like going with the Broncos, being a Chiefs fan. Just with Pittsburgh's injuries that they have going on, it sounds like Antonio Brown's very highly doubtful with the concussion. D'Angelo Williams, it sounds like, isn't going to be back, and then Big Ben had his shoulder issues. So it's going to be an uphill battle for those guys to go into Denver and win. And, they got to go deal with Peyton Manning, and I guess that could go one of two ways. But I'm still going to take Denver on that side of things.
Then we got Seattle versus Carolina.
I'm going to go Carolina. Boy, what a crazy ending to that game with Seattle and Minnesota. It was a shame. Shame to see Minnesota not finish that thing off, but that's sports for you, and it happens. So, but I'm going to go with the Panthers with the season they've had. Seattle's going to be tough. That should be a really good ball game, but I'm going to stick with Panthers.
And then finally, Green Bay and Arizona.
I can't believe I'm going to do this, and I apologize, Jason Kemp, our radio guy, but Arizona's tough. They're
yes,
really tough, and they dominated Green Bay a couple of weeks ago. And once again, it's as I stated last week, it's tough to bet against Aaron Rodgers, but I'm going to do it here and go with Carson Palmer and the Cardinals.
So going against his two guys he doesn't like to go against. How about that?
Yeah, crazy. Yeah,
excellent.
Yeah. So we'll see how my results end up next week.
Absolutely. We head into our fan questions. We begin with two from Steve from Manitoba, who first asks, thanks as always for a great show. With such a great emphasis on drawing walks today, is there such a thing as being too passive at the plate? If you work yourself into a hitter's count with men on base, is it better to try and do some damage rather than look for a walk, even if ultimately results in an out?
Great question, Steve, as always, and appreciate the questions week in and week out. I think there is such a thing as being too passive at the plate. I'm going to give you an example for us, TJ Middlestat. TJ's led the league in walks the last 2 years here. But he has such a good eye, and Espinosa was another guy, David, such good eyes at the plate that it got him in trouble sometimes. Especially in our league where, they might call a ball off the plate. Well, with 2 strikes, you got to be battling. And you gotta open up the strike zone with 2 strikes and try to do all you can to put the ball in play. Because I've told him many times you can't put it in the umpire's hands. And it might be a ball. But there's a good chance they're going to call it a strike. So I do think that there is a situation. My offensive mentality and strategy is always with guys on base. Even me as a hitter when I played, I was a leadoff guy, just put the ball in play. I was a guy who tried to get to first base any way I could. But my mentality definitely changed when there was guys in scoring position. I was looking for something early in the count that I could drive and at least, get one guy in at minimum, if not more. And that's a great point, Steve. I really believe that in those situations you got to be ready to do some damage and try to hit a gap as opposed to go up there looking for a walk.
Steve also asked, and I was really excited about this question because I'm a Stratomatic baseball guy myself. My Stratomatic team for this year has 6 really good hitters and 3 weak hitters. I don't want to give away full innings to the opposition by putting the 3 weak hitters back to back to back in the lineup. What are your suggestions on filling out the lineup?
Another great question. And I've dealt with that in my managerial time here. And, to each their own in their opinion with this, but it's a tough spot because usually the bottom of the lineup is going to be weaker than the top and the middle, and you're usually going to put your weakest at 7, 8, and 9. But if they're really struggling, I like to mix it up. I like to maybe put a guy in the 2-hole. Maybe you have a guy who's not swinging the bat very well but can handle the bat a little bit, and maybe move some guys over and whatnot. And it's nice if you can stagger those guys because I've done it. I've done it many times in my managerial career where you try to stagger those guys. Just like Steve said, where you don't want to put 3 guys back to back to back. And that guy comes up to lead an inning, and you just gave away 3 outs and gave away an inning. But it's just like anything else. There's still a chance of those 3 guys finding a way to get on base as well. Mathematically, it just may not work out very often.
So your number 2 guy really could, if it was a guy hitting like 220 or 210 or something, if he could really bunt well or hit and run well or something, you still can use him to your advantage by moving him to that 2 slot.
Absolutely. No, and I think that's a perfect spot for that because if your leadoff guy can get on, say you give him a pitch or 2 to steal second base, then you can bunt him over or hit the ball the other way. And although even hitting the ground ball to second base, although it being out, you did your job and a very productive out.
Absolutely. Pete from Topeka asked, did it surprise you that Piazza was inducted into the Hall of Fame, but Trevor Hoffman was not? Isn't he one of the best 2 or 3 closers of all time?
Yeah, I agree. He's definitely one of the best 2 or 3 closers of all time, and I'm actually going to get to know Trevor really well here soon enough.
Yes, he will.
As he's a big piece to the Padres organization. But I look forward to meeting him and getting to know him and spending a lot of time with him. His time's coming. There's no way that he cannot be in the Hall of Fame. I don't know if I'm surprised because of the talk of the closers, as we stated before on the show, that I don't know what it is about closers, but they have a harder time getting in, it seems.
Did it surprise you at all 3 guys didn't vote for Ken Griffey?
Very, very surprised. I was talking about the other day, who in their right mind doesn't vote for him? It's just, it's crazy to me. It really is. I just don't understand. I don't get it.
The only reason I could have ever seen for that is that for whatever reason I know Hank Aaron wasn't a unanimous choice either. And maybe some writers out there are thinking, if that guy's not a first ballot in every case for everybody, I'm not going to make it for anybody else after that. But I still don't understand Griffey not getting all the spots. Crazy.
Yeah, and that could be the case, or the guy maybe that's a perfect option. I think that might be one of your only options. The only other option is, with all the talk of the the PEDs, maybe someone thought he was a user, although that's never come out from anybody's mouth. You never know. But congrats to those guys that got in, and like I said, I think Trevor's time's coming soon enough.
Trevor from Tulsa would like to know, Kevin, can you explain how infielders misjudge how balls will bounce sometimes? I see a guy lifting his glove like he is expecting one thing, but the ball doesn't bounce up as much as he thought. I would think after fielding 10,000 ground balls, you would have an instinct about this.
Well, Trevor, easier said than done, my man.
I bet.
I'll be the first to say that. It's tough. Yeah, I think that's kind of a conflicting question, because you do take 10,000 ground balls. You're expecting that ball to bounce up because it has so many times in the past. And then maybe there's that instance where it doesn't bounce up and it goes under your glove. So it's going to happen. Errors are going to happen like that. The ball's going to not bounce the way that you thought it was going to bounce. It's going to be tricky at times. But, I'm a big teacher and believer in working from the ground up, because if you work from the ground up, more likely than not, a ball's not going to be able to get under your glove. But it's going to happen. I don't care who you are, how many reps you've taken. That's a game of baseball, and that stuff's going to happen from time to time.
Would it be, I think where people misunderstand this, and this is really why when I read this question, I'm just going to ask you about this now, is, okay, so I would assume that there would be a difference in the ground ball if it's a brand new ball put into play as comparison to what, say, a one that's been hit twice or three times in the inning. Did that question make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense from your end. I would say, honestly, with the baseballs and how well made they are, I don't really think there's any difference in that, whether it's a brand new ball or whether it's been hit two or three times. I really don't. Now, maybe there's going to be on the hitting side of things, you might have a more rubbed up, darker ball that you're trying to hit, and then a brand new one's a lot more white in color, and it's a lot easier to maybe see. But defensively, I think, like Trevor said, when you take that many ground balls, it really doesn't matter what ball you're using. Very rarely does a ball come into play on what it's going to do. Usually it's something on the dirt or the turf that it's going to hit, where it's going to stay down there, either bounce up higher, I would say.
Okay. Bill from Olath asks, Kevin, since you're a Royals fan, I have a question for you. I remember when George Brett played, there was a whole lot of guys who used the Charlie Lau style of hitting, with Brett being the most successful of the group. Nobody uses that anymore. Why is that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's a great question. Charlie was obviously a big-time hitting guy in his day, and as a hitting coach was arguably one of the legends that you hear. I don't know. I really don't. I don't know what. I think it's just fads, like anything else in the game. Times change, things change, and it's just different methods and different things that are happening and going on. But I'm not sure. That's a great question, and I don't know if it's a question that I can really answer. Just because of all the different methods and styles these days and throughout time, I think that's probably just the reason that he was one of those guys. He didn't emphasize releasing the top hand after making contact, and he had a certain ways of doing things, and for whatever reason, it just isn't practiced or done like that as much anymore. It's interesting. Hitting, you can talk about hitting and different hitting philosophies and different hitting guys. It's just such a unique thing, and it's not like fielding, because hitting-wise, we all have our unique stance, and we obviously all have to get to the hitting position kind of just like we do fielding. But hitting, for sure, is a lot of different mindsets and a lot of different philosophies out there in the world today.
Interesting. We head into our football, and we begin with our favorite person, two from Chiefs fan. The first one, Kevin, my man, 11 straight on the way to 14 straight. Of all the teams that played last weekend, didn't the Chiefs look the most impressive by far?
Yeah, I would definitely say they looked the most impressive, as I stated before, 30 to nothing win. 14 straight. I mean, looking to go 14 straight. That'd be something spectacular. The Royals win the World Series, the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. That would be
something.
That would be pretty special. Like I said, though, they're going to have their hands full the rest of the way out now. I mean, the NFL is just such a unique league where anybody can beat anybody on any given week, as I stated last week. But I'll tell you, if they play the way they played last week, they're going to give themselves a good chance, even if they are playing against Tom Brady.
Chiefs fan would also like to know, the Chiefs are playing New England while the Broncos are playing Pittsburgh. Kevin, I have to tell you that I like our chances better against New England than the Broncos against the Steelers. What do you think?
Well, as I stated earlier, I like the Broncos just because of the injuries of the Steelers. Now, if the Steelers are at full strength, yes, I would totally agree with that. I was actually hoping that the Chiefs were going to end up going to Denver. But, some of the other games messed that up. But, no, I still like the chances going to New England. They've been beat up a little bit, too, at the receiver position. They don't run the ball very well at all. So they're going to have to rely on Tom to have a big game, I do believe, against the Chiefs. And if Alex can maintain the game and continue to do what he's doing, or the defense can play the way they have, they're going to give themselves a real good chance, Chiefs fan. Look forward to talking about the outcome next week, my man.
Absolutely. Speaking of Alex Smith, Ian from Salina would like to know, Alex Smith sure looked good and looks like he could lead the Chiefs to the Super Bowl. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. I really believe so. I said it again last week. He's such a good, and I know I've said it many times on this show, he's just a quality game manager. Doesn't try to do too much. He's always under control, it seems. I think this last weekend he threw his first pick, and I don't even know how many attempts. It had been a long time since he'd thrown an interception. But Jeremy Macklin's going to be a big key, I think, as well this weekend. He's got that high ankle sprain, and I think they thought it was going to be a lot worse coming out of the game last week. So hopefully he'll be all right and give us another weapon going into this weekend.
Mike from Kansas City has an interesting question for you. Kevin, I think all the Chiefs fans ought to sign a card thanking the Philadelphia Eagles for being stupid enough to let Andy Reid get away. Are you in on that?
I am definitely in on that. And, Mike, if you listen to any of these shows, I think Robert will tell you my love and what I think of Andy Reid. I'm a big fan of Andy Reid, and I was ecstatic when they hired him as head coach. Very impressed with what he's done. He seems like he's a player's coach who's able to communicate with his guys and gets the most out of his guys, and that's what quality coaches do.
Lewis would like to know, Kevin, how would you have handled as a coach the way the Bengals players acted at the end of that game against the Steelers? I just don't get how, with just a few seconds away from advancing, these guys could act that dumb.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I watched it with my own eyes. I watched them just give that game away. I don't get it. I like to think I would never be in that position, and my guys would never put me in that position. I always say it starts at the top. My players are a reflection of me, and I know that's a different level, and those guys get paid a lot of money, and they sometimes act how they act. But as a head coach, I think it's your job to control that environment and how those guys handle themselves. And definitely got out of control. Perfect. I don't. He's not on the field if it's me, and I get it. I heard Merrill Hodge on one of the talk shows say afterwards he's one of your best players. He's got to be on the field. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that shows you what you're about if you don't take him out and leave him on the field. I get it. Maybe your job's on the line at that level and whatnot, and you gotta try to win the game any way you can. But there comes a point where, as I've stated, it's a reflection of their head coach, and that was embarrassing. I was embarrassed for that organization with what happened and the way that they handled that.
It's really tough to be a Cincinnati Bengals fan, I can honestly say.
Yeah, man, and I'm sure they lost quite a few fans after that. That's just, I really was. I was just shaking my head, and I felt bad for all the rest of the team and the rest of the players who had to deal with that.
Absolutely. Kim from Lions would like to know what a sad way that was for the Vikings to lose. That had to have been tougher than just being blown out, wouldn't you say?
I would say so. You work so hard to put yourself in that situation, and here you are, a 27-yard field goal away from winning the game, and it just didn't work out. It didn't work out, and that's sports in general. Sometimes that stuff happens, and I know that Blair Walsh has made plenty of kicks in his time, and I guarantee you there was a game or two where he won a game for them and put them in that position. So I never say one thing cost him a game. And it's just that was an unfortunate way to end the game, no doubt about it. Because I was really pulling for Minnesota, and I thought that they obviously put themselves in a good position to beat the Seahawks, which I know is going to be tough to do.
Phil from Derby asks, Rodgers looked like his old self for the Packers. Do you see him taking that same kind of success into Arizona?
They shut him down last time. My brother was actually talking about it yesterday. I think they sacked him 9 times last time.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So they got to him. And I'm sure Green Bay, is watching that game film quite a bit. And Arizona's probably going to try to mix some things up. But it was good to see him like his old self. And, Jordy Nelson, I think it goes to show how important he is for that team. Because he's been out all year, and you could just tell the other day he's dearly missed. And I know they still have some good receivers and whatnot, but dearly missed. But I'm a big Aaron Rodgers fan, and it was good to see him as his old self. And it'll be interesting, because if he is his old self against Arizona, he's going to get a chance.
Chet from Oklahoma City would like to ask of you, what a game that national championship was. Did you ever think Nick Saban would have gone for the onside kick there, tied at 24?
Wonderful, wonderful game that was. It's always fun when those games are that close like that, just back and forth, back and forth. Looked like Alabama was going to run away with it, and Clemson made a little run there at the end. But, no. I mean, that's just one of those things as a head coach that you got to be sneaky sometimes and think outside the box. And when they showed the replay of Clemson pushing everything towards the middle, they left the sidelines open. And credit to the kicker. That was a perfect kick, perfect spot for that. And sometimes it ends up working and sometimes it doesn't, but Nick looked like a hero there by making that call, and it worked out great for them.
Congratulations. And you fulfilled your prediction, too. You said Roll Tide. So,
yeah, how about that?
So that's awesome. Shelley's dad would like to know, Kevin, my 9-year-old heard me listening to the show when you were talking about Disney World and wanted me to ask what was your favorite ride while you were at Disney World?
My favorite ride was the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train at Magic Kingdom. I think we ended up riding it 3 times, and it was one of the rides with the longer wait. So we stood in line for a while a couple of times. That's how good that ride was. I think you ask anybody in our family, that was our favorite. All 4 of us, that was our favorite. So lots of fun and something we'll never forget. And I would imagine we'll end up heading back there at some point.
The topic that everybody's speaking about, Kevin, what would you do if you win the Powerball?
I tell you what, Henry, I would love to worry about what I would do if I won the Powerball. Oh my goodness, it's crazy. I cannot believe how high it's gotten. And last week, it's crazy how many tickets are out there and no one matches the numbers. That's just baffling to me, how that happens. But it's going to be another exciting night Wednesday night to see if anybody comes out on top. And I don't think I complain if that winning ticket was in the Hooper household, that's for sure. Honestly, don't know if I could answer the question of what I would do. It's fun to think about what you would do, no doubt. I think that I can make a lot of people pretty happy, that's for sure.
I found it interesting they were saying in Forbes magazine that if whoever wins that will instantly reach into the top 50 in America of the 50th richest people in the country by winning the Powerball alone.
You know what? You'll like this story, Robert. At our press conference today, Nate Robertson, who's a longtime big league pitcher, who's one of our owners, someone asked the question, one of the media people asked the question of, how's the new search for a new manager going? And Josh answered the question, and Nate chimed in, sitting in his chair there in the front. He said, "You know what? I'll answer that question. Whoever wins the Powerball is going to be our next manager." It was pretty great. It was a perfect drop-in by Nate. It was wonderful. Made everybody laugh, kind of lighten the mood. It was a lot of fun.
That person will definitely have lightning in a bottle, so absolutely might be the right guy. Speaking of that really quickly, I hate to get off the questions for a moment, but there was some other discussion I saw that of renovations to the stadium. Was that?
Yeah, $700,000 worth of renovations. It's I think they're doing like a five-stage project where it's going to be in 5 different phases. This is the first phase. They're going to remodel all the bathrooms, I think, some of the concessions, put chair backs in all of the seats. So, definitely needed some upgrades in that stadium. So, a lot of positive things happening around there.
Well, that is excellent. Heading to our next question from Mike and Trish. Kevin and Rob, we are about to get married this June. We wanted to know what are some secrets to a good marriage.
Well, I appreciate the question, Mike and Trish. I'll go ahead and answer first, and Rob can give his thoughts. For me, it's one word, and that's communication. I know I've talked about communication a lot on this show, not only with marriage, but in a lot of things in general in my position that I've been in. But you got to be able to communicate, and there's going to be some times where it's not going so well, and you just got to talk things through. It's a team effort. Know that it's going to take 2 to tango to be a successful marriage, and it's a team effort. Definitely, it's a team effort, because there's going to be days where one of you is not going to be having a great day, the other one's got to pick you up, and vice versa. It is definitely a team effort, and it takes a lot of work as well.
Well, I would say, first of all, Mike and Trish, congratulations there on getting engaged. I would say that a key secret for me personally that I see is humility. You don't need to be right all the time. It doesn't matter if you are right all the time. All that's going to do is create problems for you by having to say I'm right and my spouse isn't. You don't need to be... You're going to make mistakes. You're going to fall on your face. Your wife or your husband is going to make mistakes and fall on their face at time. And being humble enough about it to say, hey, I make mistakes. I'm wrong at times. I don't need to be right every time, I think is a real key for me personally.
Very good, Rob. There you go, Mike and Trish. That's just a little piece from the Hoop and Pan show.
Absolutely, yeah. two weeks of it left. All right, excellent. Okay, so for our final questions this week, we have kind of an interesting scenario that I wanted to share with people before we ask Kevin. Nick wrote in this question to me on Friday, which was, Kevin, how do you get your wife to see that camping is a great activity for the whole family? Now, on Sunday, Nick's wife wrote in asking Kevin, how do I get my husband to see that if I don't want to go camping, I shouldn't have to go? So we'll let Kevin answer that in any order or however he'd like to answer that.
Yeah, this is great, and this brings a smile to Robin and my face. It's good stuff, and we always like him in the show, obviously, and in some fun fashion, and this is just another example. And we Rob and I were talking before we started the show, we're not real sure if Nick knows that his wife doesn't know this question. So that'll make it even better, Nick, if you didn't know when you listen to this. But camping, I'm going to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of camping, but growing up, I grew up going camping all the time, and it was always fun. Outdoors is great, fresh air. Everybody wants to talk about the fresh air. But to each her own. Obviously, Nick's wife doesn't enjoy camping or have any interest in going camping. But here's my answer to the two of you. To make both worlds happy, rent a nice motorhome.
There you go.
And then Nick's wife, if she feels, could sleep in the nice, comfortable motorhome. And Nick could go on outside and pitch a tent with the kids or whoever, and you kind of got 2 options there to make everybody happy. So there's my advice and answer for you this week. Rob, I don't know if you have anything to add to that or not.
The only thing I would say is, Nick, this is one of those humble situations. You may be right that camping is great, but if your wife doesn't think so, you don't need to be right then. That's the way I look at it.
Yep. Happy wife, a happy life, they say, right?
That's what they say.
But like I said, just go have a fun weekend, rent a nice little motorhome, enjoy it. That way the two of you can enjoy it and have a good time. Nick, wish you the best with the whole situation, pal.
Absolutely. Well, Kevin, thank you for joining us this week, and it's kind of sad to know that next week will be the last episode of our show, but it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Rob, I can't thank you enough. Always a pleasure, and I'm a little bummed that we are only going to have one more week, but excited for the last week of questions. And thanks again to all you listeners out there and to all you that write in week and week out with these questions, because it's been a joy of mine.
We want to thank Kevin Hooper for joining us on Short Hops this week. We want to remind you that next week's program will be the last, as Kevin will be moving on to the San Diego Padres organization to start a new chapter in his life. So if you have questions, this is the last week that you'll be able to get them in. Please have them in to us by Sunday evening so we can give Kevin a little time to review them before we record the show on Monday. I want to thank you for joining us this week. I'm Rob Pannier, the managing editor of the Minor League Sports Report, and we'll see you next time on Short Hops.